How was anyone at level 50 supposed to one-shot a third-class monster? But after thinking it over, he realized it might not be as impossible as it sounded. Urta crossed her arms, wondering if Ilhan had already figured out a plan. A moment later, a hammer appeared in the hero's hand. He decided to hold off on evolving his stealth skill for now, but if he used a mana stone to reinforce his weapon through mana crafting, that just might work. The very next moment, a powerful surge of energy erupted somewhere deep in the forest of the troll plain. Ilhan looked a little unsure. He wasn't positive if his new idea would be enough. Suddenly, the hero heard a bizarre sound and whipped his head around. Over there, he saw a giant sand scorpion holding Nayuna in its massive claw. The girl looked absolutely terrified. She cried out to Ilhan for help. The beautiful girl tried to struggle free, but it was no use. The monster was just too strong for her. Hajin, who was standing nearby, reminded her that he'd warned her to be more careful. Tears started to well up in Nayuna's eyes as Hajin chased after the scorpion, completely powerless to help. Urta commented, "That's what can happen when you're caught by surprise, but you probably wouldn't understand that." The young man pulled his mask over his face and muttered that he really didn't want to run into this pair inside a dungeon. But even as he complained, he knew he couldn't just walk away and ignore this. His gut feeling had been right after all. This guy never ceased to amaze Urta even after all this time. The goddess asked in disbelief if he was seriously planning to fight with the skewer he was just eating with. Without a word, the hero hurled the steel skewer, which was forged from a metal heart, straight at the monster. Urta was shocked that Ilhan would use such a precious material just to make a simple skewer. The boy's unusual weapon flew true and hit its mark. The scorpion immediately released the girl from its pincer. The young man leaped into action at the perfect moment. He managed to catch Nayuna mid-air, then gently tossed the beauty toward her companion Hajin before charging the monster. The girl landed right on Hajin, sending them both tumbling to the ground. Meanwhile, Ilhan reached into his inventory and pulled out a much more suitable weapon. With his spear now in hand, the young man swiftly closed the distance to the giant scorpion. In one fluid motion, he spun and threw his sharp weapon, landing a perfect hit. The hero capitalized on the critical strike, earning 668 experience points. A system message confirmed the kill of a level 78 giant sand scorpion. The young man's critical strike skill leveled up to 9. He was thrilled by the news, especially since he thought the monster was a lower level. Urta explained that the scorpion's greatest weapon was its poison, but luckily Ilhan was already resistant. All in all, it was a pretty good fight. Looking down at the defeated monster, the hero said, "A giant sand scorpion. I bet this will taste amazing. I'm guessing the meat is probably like lobster." The celestial being was stunned that his first thought was about eating it. Was food really the only thing he came here for? Meanwhile, Nayuna was finally coming to her senses. Her own guardian angel was right beside her, worried about her condition. The girl looked around confused, then her eyes locked onto her savior. She called him the Dark Prince from Los Angeles. For a moment, Ilhan looked completely lost. Yuna whipped out her phone, showing him a picture. "Don't you know you're totally famous on Instagram right now?" People were calling him the Dark Knight of the American government. Hajin and Appa chimed in, adding that some even thought he was an FBI agent. The girl just smiled. Honestly, Dark Knight sounds way cooler. Urta, overhearing this, simply confirmed her suspicions. The internet is a cesspool, and idle chatter always spoils everything. Our hero decided to just get back to business. He walked over to the slain scorpion, completely ignoring the couple he'd just saved. Hajin realized Ilhan was starting to dismantle the scorpion. They watched in awe as the young man worked with incredible precision. Ilhan kept at it until late in the afternoon. He finally finished just as the full moon rose in the sky. Over a fire, a pan sizzled with pieces of white meat roasting perfectly. The aroma was so amazing that Yuna and Hajin's mouths started watering. They suddenly remembered they hadn't eaten all day. The hero offered to share the scorpion meat, but gave them a fair warning that it was poisonous. The girl exclaimed that it was no problem at all, and she could handle it. She pointed her palms toward the pan and commanded the poison to disappear. Ilhan and Hajin watched as a lilac-colored energy, the poison itself, lifted from the meat and vanished into the sky. After a moment, she announced it was safe to eat. The poison was completely gone. Our hero sighed internally. These two had some seriously useful skills. God is so unfair. Urta heard his thoughts and explained, "We heard Yuna is blessed by the goddess of beauty. She wields astonishing divine power." The young man just grumbled to himself that some people get all the luck while he was forgotten for 1,000 years. A little later, his uninvited guests were happily devouring the delicious meat, praising the Dark Knight's cooking skills. But now it's time to get back to the present. Yuna and Hajin thanked their savior over and over for the amazing dinner. Our hero, not sure what to say, just averted his gaze. He was still keeping his face hidden. The girl then asked if he was lonely by himself, offering him a spot on their team. Her main selling point, he'd have a beauty like her around. But our hero flatly refused. Yuna was completely stunned. She complained to Appa that she, with her incredible beauty, got shot down in less than a second. Hajin thought to himself that it served her right. Meanwhile, a question popped into Ilhan's head. Wait, aren't these two a couple? This isn't the reaction I expected. Appa thanked the hero for saving his teammate and said it was time for them to leave. He held out a piece of paper with a phone number, telling him to call to get a reward for his help. The business card had a phone number and a name, Kang Hajin. The young man realized he'd seen a card just like this before. It was nearly identical to the one he got from Kangmir. He figured all three of them must work for the same company. Yuna decided she should give him her card too. The girl mentioned they were just here on business and would head straight back to Korea once they were done. Hajin quickly shushed her, telling her not to leak classified information. Ilhan glanced at her business card and knew for sure they were from the same company. The young man continued to scold the girl for her loose lips, and she apologized, claiming she didn't say anything important. Angel Appa flew off after them. The hero mentioned to Erta that he'd probably run into that pair again in this dungeon. The angel told him not to jinx it, but he just added that he planned on following them anyway. It was his only lead for finding another scorpion. The angel thought that was an even worse idea. Meanwhile, Yuna was telling her partner that she could totally get the Dark Knight to join them if she had a little more time to charm him. If he had any interest in girls, he'd definitely give in. Hajin didn't even bother arguing with his friend. The pretty girl mused that it was tough working with just the two of them. She wondered if the hero would help if they offered him everything from the scorpion except the poison. Kang then asked her, what if the poison is the one thing the Dark Knight actually needs? It wouldn't be good if he started wondering why we need it. Hajin stressed, you really need to watch what you say. Ilhan, who was walking nearby, couldn't help but smile at the guy's words. He thought that's exactly why you need to watch what you say. The beauty then wondered why they had to hide their mission from the heavens. Besides, that young man saved them and even fed them dinner. She was sure he was a good person. Kang replied without looking back that he was amazed at how naive Yuna could be for her age. The girl just smiled and said, it's all thanks to you and Meyer's training. At that, Ilhan shot a look at Erta. He wanted an explanation. The angel had told him this was a troll dungeon, but it turned out to be full of scorpions. Erta simply stated that she didn't have that information. Our hero thought this was highly suspicious. He figured the angel was just messing with him because he correctly guessed what would happen. Just then, another scorpion appeared in the clearing behind them. The Dark Knight took it down in a single blow, earning a cool 697,000 experience points. Erta was shocked to see that the hero once again used a skewer made from the metal heart instead of his usual weapon. Ilhan noticed that thanks to his stealth skill, the other two didn't even see the monster. He couldn't understand how they got into these situations when they had their own guardian angel. Erta explained that an angel's power is limited on Earth. Celestials aren't allowed to interfere too much in a human's life. All I can do is offer hints and advice. The hero grumbled that guardian angels are completely useless and only cause trouble, which really annoyed the celestial. Meanwhile, Yuna was staring at a super giant scorpion. Kang asked to clarify if she was talking about the giant Death Stalker. Of course, Ilhan heard every single word. He was both surprised and thrilled when he heard the monster's name. The angel looked just as stunned as her ward. At that very moment, Hajin finally spotted the threat behind him. This was it. This was the exact reason they'd come to a troll dungeon in the first place. It was the giant Death Stalker they had to defeat. Yuna was just blown away by the sheer size of the monster. Kang yelled at her that now was not the time to be impressed. The young man told the beauty they needed a buff and fast. The girl didn't waste a second. Activating her magic, she called upon the higher powers to strengthen Hajin. In the next instant, a magic circle appeared beneath the guy's feet. Kang didn't hesitate for another moment. With his shield raised, the paladin charged the giant scorpion. Ilhan watched in surprise, asking Erta, a paladin and a healer. I guess they don't need my help, right? The angel totally agreed with him. Apparently, they could handle it themselves. Yuna clapped her hands, cheering on her friend with all her might. But the poor girl was so focused on Hajin, she completely missed the huge troll sneaking up behind her. Finally, a strange sound made her glance over her shoulder. In that very moment, the monster unleashed a terrifying roar, its eyes burning like red-hot coals. Belle screamed, warning her friend of the imminent danger. Just then, appearing out of thin air right above the troll's head, was none other than Yu Ilhan. Our hero brandished his super weapon, driving it down like a powerful stake. It pierced straight through the troll's back. In the next second, the massive beast collapsed to the ground lifeless. Yuna screamed in terror, covering her face with her hands. Kang Hajin was frozen solid. He did not see that coming at all. Our hero landed lightly on the troll's body. looking a bit disappointed by the system message. The Mortal Death Strike debuff was a unique class with a level 5 impact, and its effect was a 50% boost to hitting power. Piercing power was also boosted by 50%, but the item would be destroyed after use. Ilhan grumbled, "This is what you get for ignoring durability and putting everything into attack power." Seriously, who even designs an item like that? The system explained that the weapon focused all its stats into a single devastating attack. It was unstable and would break after one use, but that one hit would absolutely annihilate the target. Chulne, our hero, figured you'd have to be pretty tough to one-shot a third-class monster. The young man really didn't want any extra attention on him. Ilhan turned to his new acquaintances and said, "I'm done here, you guys can continue." The whole time the giant scorpion hadn't budged, its gaze fixed on the dead troll. Kang Hajin slowly turned his head back toward the creature. In that instant, the scorpion lashed out with its massive claw. The young man barely managed to roll out of the way. He had totally forgotten he was in the middle of a fight. Yuna screamed, seeing that Hajin was in trouble. Belle knew her friend couldn't win alone, so she quickly stopped Ilhan. Belle shouted, "If you help us kill the scorpion, we'll give you everything except the poison." Our hero didn't hesitate for a second. That was a great offer. Hajin, however, was fuming that his friend made a deal without even asking him. Yuna begged him to be smart about it, knowing he couldn't do it alone. Just then, the scorpion attacked again. Kang jumped back, but he couldn't avoid the trap. The monster's powerful tail snatched the young man right up. Ilhan got there in the nick of time. He casually asked Hajin if he was ready to stop arguing so he could help. With a single swing of his spear, the scorpion's tail was severed, sending Hajin flying to the ground. But our hero didn't stop there. He immediately charged the monster again. Scrambling up, Hajin watched Ilhan's movements in utter amazement. He was completely shocked by his skill. Yuna shouted, "Hajin, you need to attack too." The boy snapped out of it and followed his friend's advice, gripping his sword with both hands. He activated a strengthening strike and lunged at the scorpion. Erda explained to Ilhan, "The skill he just used amplifies the previous attack, making his next strike even stronger. In other words, he's borrowing your power." Our hero was surprised that skill even cost mana. He honestly thought Kang was a bit stronger. The angel simply said that not all humans are monsters like Ilhan. Just then, the young man yelled, "Hey, Scorpion, you know what my specialty is." He then began relentlessly striking the monster in the exact same spot. A moment later, the system reported that he'd gained almost 2.5 million experience points. Ilhan had just achieved the record of a level 95 giant death hunter. Our hero wasted no time and immediately began to carve up the scorpion carcass. The master craftsman separated all the venomous parts and showed the poisonous stinger and its glands to his new acquaintances. Yuna and Hajin were incredibly grateful for the help. At that moment, Erda pounced on Pada with an angelic, overwhelming hold. Shaho, the furious angel, demanded to know if Pada was the one who lured the scorpion there. Meanwhile, Ilhan was wondering if scorpion meat tasted good, but decided he should probably deal with the slain troll first. Our hero walked over to where the monster's body lay. He spotted a third-class mana stone. What a fantastic find, and Pada saw it too, still amazed by how fast the kill had been. Yuna saw both angels, but she just assumed it was a friendly hug, not a confrontation. Kang, on the other hand, knew exactly what was happening. Finally, Erda released Pada. She thought the mana stone was a wonderful prize for her charge. Ilhan was just glad he could finally complete the quest. Hajin said they were heading back to Korea, and suggested our hero come with them and join their clan. Yuna chimed in. "Mr. Dark Knight, please join our clan. Meyer would be so happy." But Ilhan just held up his hand and coldly shut them down. Kang tried to persuade him, saying his skills were amazing. If he joined them, he could grow even stronger. Pada added, "People improve when they work with others. That way you can share experience and knowledge." Yuna then said, "Besides, hunting monsters with a pretty girl like me is a lot of fun." But our hero was unmoving. He said, slowly emphasizing each word, "I don't want to." He thought to himself that popular people could have fun by themselves. Then he decided to explain. "I know how great it is to work in a team, but I've never had that experience because no one ever noticed me or cared about me before. I always overcame every obstacle by myself, and I improved my own shortcomings. It would be weird for me to accept an offer from extroverts like you. Just leave me alone." After hearing his words, Erda realized the boy's old trauma was flaring up again. The angel knew it was time for her to intervene. "Shishkwe," she told everyone present to stop being so pushy and leave. Her words were heard, but as a farewell, Kang asked Yu Ilhan to contact them. Our hero really hoped he would never see them again. He then said, "Great, now my stealth skill can finally come back." Erda replied, stunned, "You really just do whatever you want, don't you?" The young man held out his hand for the mana stone and said it was time to get to work. The system recorded the hero's loot: the heart of a second-class sleeping monster, 50,500 troll blood, 10,100 good sleep, Skogstyr, and 1 third-class monster mana stone. Ilhan couldn't help but smile at his progress. He'd finally evolved his rest skill. This was the moment he'd been working for all this time. All those ingredients had been converted into pure energy, and in return he gained an incredible regeneration ability, just as the system reported. Now his mind and body would recover from fatigue and injuries at an amazing speed. For the moment, of course, the skill was only at level 1. But even so, if he lost a finger, he could regrow it in an instant. The only catch was a cooldown period until he was fully recovered. The skill's other abilities remained the same. Erda cheered for him, congratulating him on acquiring such an expert rank training skill. She explained that at a high enough level, our hero could even revive if his heart was shattered into tiny pieces. Ilhan wondered just how much training that would take. He thought to himself that this was a seriously amazing skill. An ability like this was definitely worth all the hard work. The angel couldn't help but smile. Her student was always full of surprises. Ilhan mentioned his next quest to defeat 100 Class 2 monsters and become a novice reaper. Angelica gasped, saying that was an insane condition. She figured Ilhan was the only person who could even attempt it. He didn't disagree, as that was probably why he got the quest. While watching the trolls in the dungeon, he noticed something was off. They used to just rest by the trees, but now they were constantly pacing and never sleeping. He first thought they might be trying to avenge their leader, but their movements didn't seem vengeful at all. Erda just advised him to hurry up and finish the quest. So for the next several days, our hero went on a troll hunting spree. Ilhan roamed the dungeons, taking down monsters one by one. He was so close to his goal, having already defeated 97 of them, but he noticed their numbers were getting pretty thin. Before, he would run into one every 10 minutes. Now, he was lucky to find one an hour. The boy also couldn't ignore how strangely the trolls were acting. The monsters seemed too sluggish to even run away, yet they fought desperately for their lives. Our hero guessed that someone or something was controlling them. Erda reminded him, "You already killed their leader," and she couldn't imagine another troll with a higher rank around. "Then it must be some other kind of monster," Ilhan concluded. The angelic woman had to agree with his logic. After finishing a quick meal, Ilhan suggested they head back. Erda agreed it wasn't worth the risk and supported his decision. She added that this wasn't the only dungeon with Class 2 monsters, so the young man and his helper made their way toward the exit. But he noticed right away the path had changed. He pointed it out to Erda. The celestial girl closed her eyes, trying to figure out what was going on. A moment later, they snapped open, a look of pure confusion on her face. Angelica realized the way out of the dungeon had completely disappeared. They were trapped. Erda started to panic. The exit was gone, and she couldn't contact any other angels. Nothing like this had ever happened to her before. Our hero tried to calm her down, but it was no use. And in that moment, a chilling thought struck him. Has he been abandoned again? He looked at the angel, the question clear in his eyes. Her expression confirmed his worst fear. They were in an abandoned world. God watches over countless worlds, helping living beings when they are in danger. But sometimes monsters become too strong and end up wiping out entire species. Once monsters lose their enemies, they begin to consume each other. After that happens, the world's future simply fades into nothing. Heaven refuses to give up on such a world. The halo above an angel's head is what allows her to communicate with other divine beings. Erda cried out in despair. In an abandoned world, all ties to heaven disappear. I can't contact anyone. But our hero argued that this was just a dungeon on Earth. The angel lowered her gaze. Her silence made the young man nervous. Right, it has to be. Erda could see how anxious her student was becoming. She expected him to say more, but Ilhan suddenly shot up from his spot, pulling the angelic girl with him. The very next moment, they both tumbled to the ground. Thanks to the guy's excellent reaction time, they managed to escape. The sharp point of a gigantic weapon slammed into the ground right where Ilhan had been sitting a second ago. Some giant creature holding what looked like an axe growled, "Found you!" The monster's face was completely hidden under a hood. It seemed to want a record in the system by killing our hero. Ilhan had no idea what it was. Erda replied that this wasn't a registered monster. It was a mutation created when monsters eat each other and evolve. The angel couldn't predict its behavior, so she warned him to be careful. The monster didn't wait, and attacked our hero again with its sharp weapon. Ilhan could tell it was without a doubt stronger than the leader of the plains trolls. But the young man was confident he could overpower it. Even if it's strong, he thought it's only a Class 3 monster. The hero then realized the monster wasn't trying to hit him, but Erda. Could it be because of his stealth skill? The monster's special trait must also be related to stealth. The Celestial promised him a reward for saving a supreme being. That is, if he got out of this fight alive. Angelica was very worried about him. She really didn't want him to die. Once again, the young man skillfully managed to avoid the powerful opponent's attack. Ilhan had just enough time to notice a red eye glowing in the darkness of the hood. The monster kept muttering about getting a record, Edo, and our hero wanted to understand why. The young man remembered his debuff was destroyed. As for weapons, he only had his spear. His armor was practically just a heavy shield since he couldn't use his ambush skill. The monster held out a bony hand toward the boy and rasped, "Quickly give me all of it." Erda cautioned her student, sensing the enemy was using magic. Ilhan dropped to the ground and touched it with his hand, trying to feel for something. A split second later, the ground erupted in sharp spikes. The young man barely had time to leap into the air. From up high, he got a good look at his opponent and noticed the dark mana swirling around it. Our hero instantly planned his first move. He struck the monster with his spear with all his might, landing a critical hit. He had managed to wound the powerful beast. But the boy was still dissatisfied with his attack. Erda wasn't surprised at all, since the level difference between the opponents was almost 100. Landing even a scratch on that thing was a miracle. The Celestial said, her red eyes glowing ominously from under her hood. The monster shrieked that the hero was a weakling, demanding his record. Their weapons clashed again and again, lighting up the darkness with sparks. The creature's power was overwhelming. Yuilan knew he couldn't defeat it easily. He focused on the fight with an intensity he'd never summoned before, believing he could somehow destroy this thing. In the next instant, his spear struck true once more. The monster cried out, "How can you be so weak, yet so strong? Give me your record. Let me absorb your knowledge." But Yulhan wasn't listening. He just ordered the creature to shut its mouth. The monster swung wildly, but the hero was faster, leaping away just as a massive explosion erupted right where he had been standing. Yuilan gasped for air. He's even copying my explosion skills, he thought. My armor is deteriorating. If I lose my gear, it's all over. The hero was completely stunned. Is this the true power of mana? As if from nowhere, a second spear materialized in the monster's left hand. With a furious roar, the monster attacked again. This time, only pure instinct saved the young man. He charged forward, making a silent promise to master mana one day. He closed the distance in a flash, thrusting his spear right into the opening of its hood. But what happened next left Yulhan frozen in shock. Erda looked just as dumbfounded. The moment his spear made contact, sharp spikes shot out from the monster's hood. The hero had never seen such a bizarre mutation. His armor stood no chance. One of the spikes pierced clean through his right shoulder. A raw scream of agony tore from his lips. Erda could only watch in horror, completely powerless to help. She frantically examined the wound, but what she saw made her blood run cold. In just a few seconds, the deep red gash had turned a venomous black. Erda knew immediately this was a curse. Even the hero's incredible resistance to poison wouldn't be enough to stop it from spreading. The angel desperately tried to think of a plan. As her mind raced, Yuilan saw her shoot high up into the sky. Erda shouted down, "You'll have a harder time if it keeps chasing me. I can't stay here." The boy didn't argue and told her to get to safety. Without looking back, the Celestial pleaded, "Just don't die." At the same time, jagged spikes began erupting from the ground, chasing after her. Yuilan saw his opening. It was time for another critical strike. But as he moved, he realized he could barely feel his wounded arm. He knew the situation was critical, but giving up was simply not in his nature. He lowered his mask, hiding his expression. There wasn't a single drop of fear in him. He knew he would win. The prophecy had to come true. Meanwhile, Nana, still in the dungeon, heard a series of strange sounds. As Erda flew further from the battle, she thought, if only my power wasn't sealed on earth, things would be so different. An image of a reaper holding a scythe flashed in her mind. The entire world around her seemed to be painted red. The Celestial knew this was no time for visions. She had to hurry. If this weren't an abandoned world, they could have escaped long ago. She sent a silent prayer to her ward, begging him to hold on. She had grown attached to him and pleaded with God to protect Yulhan. Back in the clearing, Hajin was panicking because the exit scroll refused to work. Yuna asked, "Are you sure it's not broken?" "The entrance is gone too." Suddenly, Pada and Nauna heard a strange whoosh and spun around. In the next moment, a beam of green light slammed into the ground at their feet. Pada was shocked to see her colleague. The green light was Erda. The angel looked pale and utterly exhausted, panting too hard to even speak. Finally catching her breath, she exclaimed, "Pada, you need to return that favor right now." Meanwhile, the mask on Yuilhan's face was beginning to shatter. His armor was barely holding together. The monster couldn't understand it. How was this human still standing? The question echoed in its mind, but there was no answer. It just couldn't comprehend how a person so clearly exhausted could continue to fight. The creature voiced its confusion, but the hero wasn't about to have a discussion. He yelled back angrily, "It's only been 2 months since humanity returned to Earth. Do you think I survived for 1,000 years just to live for a couple of months?" The young man's grip on his spear tightened. This was it. He would not die here. This sheer will gave him one last burst of strength, and he rushed in for another attack. After landing one final blow, Yulhan collapsed, completely exhausted. He felt the curse spreading through his entire body. He couldn't even move a finger. The monster saw that its opponent had finally fallen. It hissed, "You're going to die now." The hero gritted his teeth, thinking, "Dream on." He remembered the Celestial's request. She had begged him not to die. Then an image of Yuna appeared in his mind. Then his parents. He missed them so much and refused to die here. There were so many more things he wanted to do and create. He just couldn't die like this. The young man wished he could see Lita just one more time. Finally, he was able to admit to himself that he really missed the angel. Yuilan lay face down in the dirt. The danger was right on top of him, but he had no strength to resist. He was completely paralyzed. Suddenly, he imagined Lita's voice calling out to him. Yuilan tried with all his might to regain control, but the monster's poison was just too strong. The next moment, a massive explosion engulfed everything. When the dust finally settled, the monster saw its weapon was buried deep in the ground, but the young man had vanished. The monster looked around frantically, trying to find its victim. When it finally saw him, it was stunned at how he had escaped certain death. Suddenly, Yulhan heard Yuna's voice. "Are we too late?" she asked. The beautiful girl held her hands forward, activating all of her mana. She begged the heavens to protect the hero. Yulhan realized the prophecy had finally come true. He felt the curse receding as his body began to heal. Yulhan cracked his knuckles. He could feel strength flowing back into him. As the monster lunged again, the boy flipped backward, dodging with ease. From the darkness of its hood, the monster's eyes burned with a predator's hunger. It couldn't fathom how this human had simply shattered its curse. It felt so good to finally be able to move again. Yulhan knew that if his new acquaintances hadn't arrived, he would have been a goner for sure. Kong Hajin couldn't wrap his head around it. How did a monster this powerful appear in such a low-level dungeon? Yuna urged him to attack, but he was seriously hesitating. The young man just grit his teeth. He knew he had to do something. A little help would be really great right now. The beautiful girl continued to pour her mana into the boys. Yuna spoke, her hands stretched forward. Holy blessings rained down on Hajin like a brilliant waterfall. In that instant, Kong Hajin was already rushing toward the beast. He would land the first strike. An incredible force sent him flying backward before he even knew what happened. Hajin had no idea if his attack even connected. Pa grabbed her head in frustration. How was a kid supposed to fight an opponent this strong? Meanwhile, Erda watched Yuna's skills with awe, thinking, just who is this girl? It took all of Yulhan's effort just to scratch the Reaper. How did this girl send him flying with nothing but a blessing? The celestial being hurried to her ward's side. She had to check if the young man was okay. He coughed, confirming he was still breathing. The angel seemed to have an idea, but she needed a little more time. Yulhan turned to Hajin, asking how long he could last. Kong just about shouted, "What, you want me to fight that thing all by myself?" The hero simply asked him to buy a little time. The young man looked terrified, and Yuna's eyes were filled with a silent question. Finally, Kong Hajin managed to say, "If Yuna helps me, I can probably hold out for about 30 seconds. Yulhan nodded, saying that would be more than enough. Wasting no time, Hajin charged the monster head-on. Thanks to his girlfriend's blessings, he managed to withstand blow after blow. Pa shouted, turning to her partner, "At this rate, Yuna's going to die. I don't give a damn about Hajin, but if my ward dies, I will never forgive you." Erda remembered Yulhan's words that 30 seconds would be enough. She urged her companion to trust him, but the other celestial was hesitating. What if the hero didn't make it back in time? Pa wasn't sure if the young man had a trump card up his sleeve. They waited and waited, but their champion was still nowhere to be seen. He desperately needed to find some trolls to recover his strength. One of the monsters sensed a threat, but it was already too late. Trolls aren't exactly known for their quick reflexes. The hero moved like a phantom. With a single fluid motion, he eliminated all 3 of them. Pa flew over looking for the boy. She was shocked to see him hunting trolls at a time like this. Erda explained that her ward needed 3 second-class monsters to unlock his second job. The Celestial had complete faith in Yulhan's plan. She explained that as soon as he leveled up, his power would be completely restored. A system message immediately appeared confirming he'd met all the conditions for a second job. The young man had now become a novice reaper. He had reached his goal. His stealth effect increased by 10%. His critical hit chance and attack power from an ambush both rose by 30%. His overall striking power also jumped by 20%. And the conditions for his stealth skill evolution were now relaxed. The system absorbed all his accumulated records. Yu Ilhan had reached level 53. The hero smiled. His stamina was fully restored. He had even learned a new passive skill, Death Collector. He could now absorb the records and powers of the creatures he defeated. The system noted that since he couldn't use mana yet, he couldn't learn active skills. But he was offered the chance to choose a subclass. All this time, the hero had been mentally counting down. He knew there were only 10 seconds left. It was time to go back. Another crushing blow slammed into Kong Hajin, sending blood flying from his body. The young man could feel his armor and shield giving out. He couldn't understand how Ilhan had possibly survived against this monster alone. Yuna was still maintaining the defense, desperately praying to the goddess not to let Hajin die. After one more hit from the monster, Hajin's shield finally shattered. The young man collapsed to the ground. In that same moment, the beautiful girl rushed to his side. Paw shot towards her ward, terrified she would get caught in the crossfire. The beast roared, ready to celebrate its victory. But Yuna wasn't giving up. She stretched her hands forward, praying for the power to teach this monster a lesson. Not truly expecting anything, the girl was stunned to see a brilliant light shine from her palms. She had just enough power to activate the last of her mana. The beauty's prayers had been answered. A moment later, a powerful explosion rocked the dungeon. Erda was amazed that a human could deal that much damage to the Reaper. Yuna's potential was incredible. Paw truly believed her ward could save humanity, but the Celestial knew the creature wouldn't stay down for long. The beauty tried desperately to wake Hajin up. The young man was completely spent. He couldn't even move. The monster didn't hold back. It promised to kill every single one of them. Real fear finally set in for the two friends. They suddenly realized they might actually die today. But in that terrifying moment, they heard a voice that gave them hope. Let's form a party. A system notification popped up for Hajin saying he'd accepted a party invitation. The number of members was now 3. The friends were stunned. Their third party member was none other than Yu Ilhan. Kong Hajin was overjoyed that the hero had returned. Now they actually had a chance to win. The master put a single finger to his lips, signaling for silence. At that very moment, they could hear the monster starting to stir again. Hajin gritted his teeth. The Reaper was about to attack again. Yu Ilhan told his new team, "You guys did a great job holding out. Now I have more than enough power to finish this monster." The friends looked on in awe, a glimmer of hope now shining on their faces. Kong Hajin carefully watched the hero's every move. A single thought flashed through the boy's mind. The second I saw his back, I knew we were saved. The young man let out a sigh of relief, which startled his girlfriend. Kong Hajin said almost to himself that he never realized how weak he was until today. It was a sad thought, but it was completely overshadowed by the relief he felt now that Yu Ilhan was here. As our hero approached the monster, he heard it whisper, "New humans, new records to collect." The master realized the monster was so enraged it hadn't even noticed his return. This was his chance. It was time to activate his new power. Yu Ilhan decided to use superhuman strength. In that moment, his muscles hardened like granite. The creature noticed its eyes flaring with an even fiercer light. Ilhan's eyes began to glow as well, shining with a brilliant blue aura. With resolve, the hero declared this was the end. The young man then vanished in a flash of speed. He struck the monster in a heartbeat, his spear landing a devastating blow. A critical hit. A cloud of dust exploded outwards. The lad waited for the dust to settle, eager to see the results of his attack. But the young man froze solid. He was completely stunned by the sight before him. The monster's hood had fallen away, revealing the head of a maiden with long blonde hair. The beautiful girl was wounded, tears streaming from her green eyes. She whispered a single word of thanks, which only shocked the young man even more. But Ilhan's hand remained steady. The monster was finished. Before the hero's very eyes, the energy sealed within its body burst forth in every direction. At that very instant, a system message popped up. He'd earned nearly 32 million experience points, rocketing him to level 55. His strength stat shot up by 4 points. Dexterity, health, and mana each increased by 2. Ilhan muttered in disbelief. Did she actually break free from the curse? I've never seen tens of millions of experience at once. He'd also acquired a level 157 Lidakari entry. Just then, his Death Collector skill activated. The hero absorbed and stored away Lidakari's life force. Just then, his friends rushed over to his side. Kong Hajin shouted, "Thanks to you, we leveled up and our health is full." But seeing the look in Ilhan's eyes, he trailed off. Nana was just amazed that the monster was really a person. Kang mentioned he'd never seen anything like it in the 10 years he'd spent in other worlds. Ilhan wasn't paying any attention to their chatter. He pulled out his dismantling tools, ready to get to work as usual, but Erda quickly stopped him. She demanded to know what on earth he was planning to do. The hero figured the corpse was just another monster, ready to be processed, but the celestial being stressed that it was a human body. The young man just shrugged, replying that he wasn't going to do anything weird, just collect the important stuff. If this girl has strong skin, hard bones, and a mana stone, I'm only taking those. The celestial lady just stood there, jaw dropped. She silently watched as her ward got to work. But then Ilhan froze too. What he saw left him speechless. Right before their eyes, the girl's body began to dissolve. He'd never seen anything like it. But then again, he'd never dealt with a curse before. Kang Hajin explained to Nana that the monster's body was turning to ash. Ilhan was completely crushed. He couldn't believe this was happening. Suddenly, Erda broke the silence, uttering a single word. Destroyer. The hero looked up, confused. Destroyer. Another person with a cool title. Am I the only one who doesn't know these things? He thought. Is this what happens when an introvert can't bring himself to ask questions? The Celestial explained, those who consume mana stones and are devoured by a mana monster are called destroyers. When they perish, their bodies crumble to dust. Ilhan wondered aloud, so that Reaper wasn't a real one. Erda replied, it might have been an intelligent being like an elf, but its origins were human. The boy took a few minutes to process everything. He was mostly just bummed out that he couldn't carve up the creature's body. It was a matter of scientific curiosity, but just as he lifted the monster's cloak, the hero found something. His mood instantly brightened. As it turned out, the mana stone wasn't the only thing left behind. Along with it, the young man found a set of armor and a weapon. Suddenly, Kang's excited shout cut through the air. Hey look! The dungeon exit is back! The Celestials celebrated, realizing their powers had returned. Erda figured their abilities must have been suppressed by that mysterious Lidakari. Angelica felt a pang of regret that she couldn't get an explanation from the girl. Ilhan noticed her staring and wondered why he was getting that look. In the next moment, the young man pointed at Erda, exclaiming, Wait, are you saying this is my fault? The Celestial just smiled and said she thought he was being cute. The boy visibly relaxed. He smiled back and said, Oh, well, if that's the case, then it's no big deal, Chase. The angelic girl thought to herself, The Reaper is gone, but nothing is solved. This advanced dungeon is mysterious enough to suppress the powers of even the highest beings. It's also strange that the Destroyer was given a third-class something that should be impossible to get on Earth. The question of the abandoned world also lingered in the angel's mind. She gazed thoughtfully at the sky. She had no idea what could be happening on Earth right now, but of one thing the Supreme Being was certain. Her ward, the strongest human, Yu Ilhan, had been victorious. Angelica couldn't tear her eyes away from the young man. She was immensely proud of her hero. His victory had been nothing short of masterful. Kang Hajin offered his sincere thanks for saving them. He gave Yu Ilhan a deep bow, which seemed to surprise the young man. Unexpectedly, the young man said, No, I should be the one thanking you. If you all hadn't shown up, I'd be a goner. The prediction came true after all. Kang emotionally argued that their little bit of help was nothing compared to what the hero did. They never would have escaped that dungeon on their own. After a brief pause, Ilhan decided not to argue the point. The victor simply tightened his grip on the weapon he'd scavenged from the defeated monster. The hero decided to ask if his new acquaintances were cool with him keeping all the drops. Kang Hajin's lips pressed into a thin line. He was silent, but his face was an open book of conflicting emotions. After taking a moment, he let out a deep sigh. He had no choice but to agree that the artifacts belonged to Ilhan. Now, Una was totally fine with that deal, but she wanted one little thing in return. The beauty confidently held out her hand. She asked for the hero's phone number, but her savior was resolute. He flat out denied her request. The younger girl was shocked that a beauty like her got rejected again. Ilhan's mind was racing. Sure, she's got the looks of an angel, he thought, but I have a strict no extroverts policy. But the girl wasn't giving up. She pleaded for any real information about him, but the young man wouldn't even tell her his name. The girl clasped her hands together, begging him. A divine light seemed to radiate from her. Then, to his own surprise, the guy blurted out his name. Nana commented that his name was cool. The hero disagreed, but admitted that he was used to it by now. Kang just watched this all unfold silently. He thought, this is the first time I've ever seen Nana try this hard with a guy, and the first time I've seen a guy actually turn her down. Hajin figured that those two were just not on a level that an ordinary guy like him could ever understand. At last, a shimmering portal back to Earth opened before them. Ilhan glanced over at Erda, but another powerful being stood there. It was an angel in gleaming armor, her face concealed by a helmet. This unknown celestial being requested a full report on what happened in the dungeon. Kong Hajin and Nana just stared completely stunned. They definitely didn't expect an angel to pop out of the portal. Erda seemed confused but not afraid, and she agreed to give her report. The angelic being floated closer to the Sky Woman, and the two began to talk. The humans were still reeling from their encounter with this high-ranking figure from heaven. A moment later, the celestial lady turned her attention to Yu Ilhan. For saving an angel in a critical situation, she announced, "We will discuss your reward and inform you later." The hero wasn't really concerned about a reward. He'd gladly take it after a hard day's work, but he hadn't done it for personal gain. The angel added that the incident was extremely serious, so she would be taking Erda to the heavenly realm to clarify all the details. Yu Ilhan didn't object. He felt confident he could manage just fine without an assistant for a while. The Supreme Angel then declared that the dungeon would be temporarily sealed by the power of heaven. In that same instant, as if from nowhere, 3 more angels appeared. They aimed their mana at the dungeon portal. A question popped into the hero's head. Are your dungeons like this going to keep appearing from now on? He suddenly had a nagging suspicion that someone was creating them on purpose. But that just raises the question, why Ilhan recalled the face of the cursed elf girl before she passed. He clenched his fist, realizing that just worrying about it would solve nothing. It was time to take action. The young man decided the only logical thing to do was to get stronger and stronger to ensure his own survival. From now on, he would focus on leveling up his abilities. The system then warned him to keep his distance from the portal, noting that it was extremely dangerous. The lead angel explained, "Of all the worlds we watch over Earth, is the only one with so many unpredictable factors." She added that more angels would be dispatched to Earth to keep things under control. Suddenly, the angel paused, a strange smile gracing her lips. A moment later, she said, "Oh, and Lita asked me to tell you that she misses you." Those words completely stunned our hero. The young man was overjoyed to hear that the angelic girl he'd grown so attached to was thinking of him. But he had a gut feeling that there was more to the message. He desperately wanted to know what else Lita had asked her to say. But the celestial lady simply rose into the air. "May blessings light your future, Yu Ilhan." She said, "I promise to return Erda as soon as I can." The hero shouted, trying to stop her, but his question went unanswered as she vanished from sight. You know, one of the cruelest ways to make a person suffer is to stop mid-sentence right before the most important part. It was time for the team to head back to Korea, with a long plane ride ahead. After landing, Nana and Kong Hajin zipped through customs and headed outside. The first thing the girl noticed was a sleek black limousine waiting for them. The rear window slowly rolled down. A woman with glasses sat inside, congratulating the heroes on their safe return. Her first priority, however, was getting her hands on that scorpion poison. Nauna was thrilled to see Miri. King, however, was a little annoyed by her greeting. Was that really all she had to say to her friends after they got back? But overall, they were just happy to be home and to see a familiar face. Miri was eager to hear all about their adventure, and Nana was more than happy to oblige. The black car pulled onto the highway, speeding away from the airport. Miri was captivated by the story of a Korean man who took down monsters with just a spear. Nauna chirped on about how this guy was unbelievably strong. Since Hajin couldn't get a word in, he just covered his face with his hand in total embarrassment. Miri immediately recalled the masked man who wielded a spear. She knew exactly who they were talking about. Hajin caught the faint smile on her face and knew she was hiding something, but Miri played dumb, claiming she'd never heard of him. The girl was incredibly grateful to her friends for helping her get a second class. As a thank you, she offered to take them out for drinks that night, her treat. Nauna practically exploded with excitement at the offer, shouting that she wanted a beer. Meanwhile, Yu Ilhan had finally made it back to his own house, pausing for a moment at the front door. Stepping inside, the hero called out that he was home. When no one answered, the young man found a note sitting on the table. It seemed his parents were out. His mom wrote that she popped over to Yamina to pick up some fresh seafood and would be back in time for dinner. The young man was dumbfounded. She went to another world for groceries. Our hero decided to wash off the dirt from his travels as quickly as possible. While in the shower, he wondered if his mom was actually way stronger than he realized. Ilhan remembered his dad complaining about being weak, and his mom just casually mentioning all the great seafood in Yamina. The boy concluded that his mom definitely had more talent than his dad. After drying off the master craftsman, decided it was time to get back to work in his workshop. Once there, he emptied all the materials he had gathered on his trip from his inventory bag. The hero realized the meat would spoil if he didn't process it immediately. He wondered if magic could keep items in his bag from going bad. He had nowhere to store it all, but he couldn't just throw it away. Suddenly the hero froze. He felt a presence right behind him. He turned around to see his eternal flame alive and flickering. It seemed thrilled to see its master was back. The young man instantly understood its reaction. The flame was basically asking if it could eat the meat. A brilliant idea sparked in the hero's mind. He had just found the perfect solution for the troll meat problem. The guy immediately grabbed several chunks and tossed them into the fire. He figured he could kill 2 birds with 1 stone this way. While practicing his butchering skills, Ilhan was generous with the portions. He tossed piece after piece into the hungry flame. Meanwhile, high in the heavens, a council of angels was in session. One celestial stood in the center of the grand hall, reporting on the investigation's progress. Erda was also in attendance. It was revealed that the elf Daru was under Lita's jurisdiction. The angel explained that the girl was an incredibly gifted child. If she had been born 500 years earlier, her fate might have been different, but now Daru's world was abandoned. How could Lita have possibly gotten to Earth? The heavenly auditorium buzzed with chaos. The angel at the podium ordered silence. He declared this incident raised 2 critical questions. First, how did an abandoned world manage to drift through space-time and connect to Earth's dungeons? And second, why did it link to a dungeon armed with a world-ending trap? If Ilhan hadn't defeated Lita Kari, the result would have been a catastrophe. Without our hero, Erta and Pa would have perished. In the absolute worst-case scenario, Earth could have merged with that desolate world. Suddenly, a skeptical hum from the crowd drew everyone's attention. It's been barely 2 months since the Great Cataclysm. A sneering angel asked, "And you claim a human defeated a Class 3 destroyer by himself?" Pa was not having it. She shot back angrily that her own champion could fight on Ilhan's level. The smug angel simply smiled and said that was impossible. He even suggested the human was suspicious, perhaps even the cause of the incident. In a flash, a hooded angel shot to his feet, shouting, "What did you say?" The celestial demanded that they stop speaking ill of Ilhan at once. "My ward poured his heart and soul into becoming that strong the angel proclaimed. It was Lita herself. She refused to tolerate any slander against Ilhan. All the other angels were mesmerized by the beautiful girl's appearance. They were completely stunned by her passionate defense. The angel presiding over the meeting spoke up. The angels who were with him are present. He is completely above suspicion." Now it was Erda's turn. She confirmed the hero had protected both her and Pa, reminding everyone of her past reports on his extraordinary abilities. Erta stated firmly that she never sensed any malicious intent from him. The dark-haired angel who had made the accusation looked annoyed by this passionate defense. "We will not reach an agreement today. Therefore, we have decided to quadruple the number of angels assigned to Earth. This will allow us to continue the investigation with greater care," added the meeting's chairman. "To restore balance, heaven will reward humans who show remarkable progress. More guardian angels like Erda and Pa will be sent to the most promising individuals." The higher-ups ordered a constant watch on Earth. A second merger between the abandoned world and Earth would be an unstoppable disaster. "We cannot afford to be entangled with lower worlds. We will connect them to other realms," the angel added, "to avoid this kind of chaos in the future." He believed that observing a powerful individual up close could lead them to the root of the problem. The chairman then asked Lita and Erta to stay behind for a moment. He wanted a private word with his 2 friends. The 2 angels paused, a silent question hanging in their eyes. Golden sunlight streamed through the grand hall's windows, filling the auditorium with a soft, almost magical light. After a long explanation, the chairman thanked Lita and Erta for listening. He wanted to consult them about the most fitting reward for you, Ilhan. "After all, you 2 know him better than anyone." Lita was absolutely thrilled for her former ward. Erta added thoughtfully, "We should give him something that will truly benefit him." The angel nodded, sharing in Lita's joy. "Bar, by heaven's decree, he promised, I will grant the hero the greatest reward in my power." Lita was overjoyed to hear such words from Muir, but Erta looked completely shocked. Muir was known for always maintaining a neutral stance and valuing impartiality above all else. Why was he making an exception now? The angel explained he was simply fulfilling heaven's will. This is all for the sake of bringing balance back to Earth. Muir then fell silent for a moment. He felt a strange premonition. It seemed to him that this human, Yu Ilhan, might just be the one to get to the heart of the matter. He was unlike the 7 billion other people who had returned to Earth. Meanwhile, back on Earth, our hero was so lost in his work, he didn't even notice time flying by. He glanced at his watch and was shocked to see it was already 1 a.m. Time to go home, he thought, wondering if his mom saved him any of that seafood dinner. The world outside was fast asleep, but the hero's workshop was still buzzing with activity. The young man stood over his workbench, admiring the results of his hard work. Ilhan let out a sigh of pure satisfaction. He had successfully reinforced the pile bunker with a new metal heart. The system assigned the weapon a unique class, naming it the Terrible Destructive Metal Heart Pile Bunker. Its striking power had now reached level 4. The pile bunker now had a 40% increase in both penetration and impact, plus it was way more durable. It was a vicious weapon created by the greatest craftsman on Earth. Our hero made a mental note not to fire it at level 5 if he wanted it to last. The durability wasn't quite there yet. Just then a new system message appeared. It said that due to the incredible force and recoil reloading, the weapon would require more courage than facing down monsters in battle. Ilhan realized he needed a long-range weapon next. A pistol or bow was useless since he still hadn't mastered mana. Using one now would just get him killed. But that thought didn't discourage him at all. It just fueled his determination to work even harder. Our hero decided to craft an atlatl, but a very special one. This particular weapon features a hook at its tip. This simple design grants it far more destructive power and range than other throwing weapons. Ilhan remembered, plus I have a spear skill. In that case, this weapon was absolutely perfect. Fired up by the new idea, he didn't waste a single moment. He immediately set his plan into motion, beginning to create the atlatl. Suddenly his gaze fell upon the remains of the cursed elf's cloak. There on the table next to the scraps of cloth lay her weapons. At that very moment he received a message from the system. It was the fallen cloak of a hidden reaper, a unique rank item with 2,400 defense and 1,238 durability. Just as he'd hoped, the extra option was stealth. With this, he might become completely invisible. Another message popped up. During an ambush attack, the user's stealth and striking power would be boosted by 20%. The cloak had absorbed mana for years, granting it the power of a reaper. The young man realized this was far more useful than he'd initially thought. The reaper's scythe was deadly and sharp, and it even increased the user's critical strike probability. But in our hero's expert opinion, this weapon still wasn't perfect. The system revealed a fascinating tidbit. This scythe was forged by the last master of a fallen world from a completely unknown metal. An idea sparked in Yu Ilhan's mind. He would reforge this ancient scythe into a brand new spear. Without hesitation, our hero tossed the elf's weapon into the roaring eternal flames. He stood back, watching intently, but what he saw next left him completely stunned. It seemed the scythe was completely immune to the heat, so there were materials that even the legendary eternal flames couldn't melt down. His thoughts seemed to anger the fire, which flickered with emotion like a living creature. Trying to cheer it on, Ilhan gave the eternal flame a pep talk. He knew it had the power to melt this stubborn scythe. He stared into the dancing flames, searching for any sign of change. Suddenly he felt a familiar, chilling gaze on his back. It was the monster from the dungeon. Whipping around his face, twisted into a scowl. Could it be Lita back from the other side of the world already? He had no clue what was happening, but he wasn't one to back down from a fight. Gripping his spear tightly, he scanned the area, ready to face whatever was coming. He braced himself for an attack from the resurrected monster, but then something weird happened. The monster's dark energy seemed drawn to the mana stone instead. Finally, the artifact dropped to the floor and absorbed all of the dark magic in a flash. Ilhan could only stare at the purple stone in disbelief. What in the world was that thing? The moment the shadowy figure vanished, the scythe finally started to melt. Could the original master's soul have been trapped inside the weapon all along? Our hero didn't really get what just went down, but hey, it worked. Just then, the angels popped into his workshop. Erta noted that he was already working with metal. She knew this day would come ever since she saw him tinkering with the arcanum. Lita giggled, pointing out that he was so focused he hadn't even noticed their arrival. Yu Ilhan's first mentor was beaming with pride. She was just so happy to be back on Earth. Meanwhile, the newly forged spear looked absolutely incredible. The system notification popped up. Spiked Spear of Annihilation. Legendary rank. Its attack power was a whopping 3,700, and it even had a 70% boost to critical damage. This masterpiece was unbelievably durable, forged by a majestic master of Earth using a weapon from another world, but according to the system, the spear wasn't finished just yet. Ilhan agreed. It felt like something was missing. He knew it wouldn't be complete without undergoing mana crafting. He'd have to use that mana stone. As he thought about it, he caught a glimpse of Lita out of the corner of his eye. He rubbed his eyes, thinking he was just tired and seeing things. But when he opened them again, he froze. It wasn't a hallucination or a trick of the light. It was really Lita standing right there. A huge, happy smile spread across her face. The beautiful angel asked, "Surprised I'm back." A sweet silence filled the space between them. They just stared into each other's eyes, unable to look away. Yu-ilhan was having a hard time processing his own feelings. He'd dreamed of this moment, but he wasn't prepared for how it would actually feel. The heavenly beauty couldn't hold back her tears of joy. She was so moved by his reaction that she threw herself right into his arms for a hug. He finally asked how long it had been since they'd last seen each other. 2 months. The angelic girl then added that for her it felt like more than 100 years. Meanwhile, Erta just stood there with her arms crossed. This whole lovey-dovey reunion was making her feel a little awkward. Having grown fond of Yu-ilhan herself, she couldn't help but feel a little jealous. But our main character snapped out of it just in time, telling his second mentor he was glad to see her too. He smiled and told her she'd done a great job. A warm feeling spread through Erta's heart. A small, faint smile appeared on her lips as she simply said, "I'm back." A little later, the three of them were sitting around a table in the workshop, sipping coffee and catching up. With a playful grin, our hero joked that he was now carrying a double burden. Lita was not amused by being called a burden. Was that really how he was going to greet her after all this time apart? Erta changed the subject, explaining, "Heaven has decided to send as many angels as needed to Earth to find the source of these anomalies." Our hero was shocked. Not even God knew what was going on. Erta confirmed it, adding that there was a high chance it could happen again. It felt like even the heavens were powerless. They had no idea what caused it, and they couldn't stop it from happening again. Lita, meanwhile, was having a tough time hiding her annoyance. She'd worked so hard for Heaven, and the first thing they talk about is more work. To his surprise, Erta seemed to agree with his thoughts. He was taken aback. The old Erta would have launched into a lecture like, "How dare you speak of higher beings that way?" But this Erta calmly replied, "You're an ally of Heaven. I don't need to defend them to you." Plus, she couldn't forget that he had literally saved her life. In that moment, their whole relationship with Heaven had changed. Ilhan realized the angel had a point. Then he remembered Heaven still owed him a reward. "Hey, you said I'd get a reward. Can you make it so the stuff in my backpack never spoils?" he asked. Seeing Erta's odd look, he assumed it was impossible. But the angel was just surprised that after saving the entire world, all he wanted was such a simple thing. Both Ilhan and Lita stared at Erta, completely baffled. Our hero couldn't figure out why she was being so nice all of a sudden. Lita, on the other hand, was still pouting about not getting enough attention. Erta stated that his deed was worthy of praise and channeled her mana into his bag. It was instantly upgraded with space expansion, weight control decay, prevention, and weight transfer. A moment later, the angel watched as pure joy lit up Ilhan's face. She felt that he deserved even more. "That's not all," Erta said, much to our hero's surprise. The angel glanced over at Lita and announced that it was now her turn. Ilhan's face immediately turned bright red. He definitely wasn't expecting this kind of gratitude from Heaven. Lita started blushing too. She shyly twirled a strand of her hair and looked right at the man she adored. Lita leaned in closer. It was her turn to give Yu-ilhan his reward. The tension was almost too much for our hero to handle. It was tough to keep his cool with the beautiful angel so close. His mind raced trying to guess what kind of reward she had in mind. His thoughts were getting all jumbled up as the awkward pause stretched on. Then in a teasing voice, the angel asked if he was ready for his reward. His face was still beet red as he eagerly stammered that he was ready. The beautiful angel smiled and said, "Then open your subclass window." This was definitely not the turn of events the young man was expecting. He'd been hoping for a completely different reward. Erta just loved his reaction. With a sweet voice, she asked, "Ilhan, is something wrong?" He immediately understood what was going on. The guy pulled up the system window and saw the notification, "Partner of an angel." The hero had no clue what that meant. Erta decided it was the perfect time to explain. "Heaven has granted you this subclass to help you as much as possible. This way, even with the limits on an angel's power, we can still lend you some of our strength. You'll be able to use the abilities of a supreme being if you ever face a situation like the one in the ruined world again." Lita jumped in, exclaiming that this meant they'd be together forever now. Her partner quickly reminded her that she'd be with them too, but the hero didn't look happy at all. He just said, "I don't really need it." This response completely stunned the celestial girls. They were expecting a totally different reaction. The angels asked why he wasn't happy about it. The young man replied, "I doubt you'll be very useful in a real fight." Tears instantly welled up in Lita's eyes. It broke her heart to hear that Ilhan thought she was useless. Erta shot back, "I admit I was just a hindrance against the Reaper, but I was helpful in every other situation." The hero just stayed silent. He never thought his words would offend the angel so deeply, but his next move completely crushed Lita. The guy burst out laughing. Finally, he decided to explain himself. It was just a joke. Of course he was thrilled with a reward like this. He just wanted to provoke them a little to see how they'd react. Lita couldn't hold back her emotions any longer. She called the boy a total brute. Once everyone calmed down, the young man finally pressed the angel partner button. In that very instant, the system announced that the hero had become an angel partner. He could now form a partnership bond with two angels at the same time. All of his stats would be increased by 30% when fighting destroyers and the undead. The young man also received a new passive skill Angel's Blessing. The chance of receiving a critical hit is reduced by 30%, but his resistance to curses is increased by 30%, and all quest rewards will get a 30% boost. This skill has no levels. The hero has to meet certain requirements for it to develop, and now he also had a new active skill in his arsenal, Angel Support. Ilhan would be able to borrow an angel's power, depending on how well he mastered the skill in the abandoned world. The more time the young man spends with the angels, the stronger this skill will become. Right now, his partners are Lita and Erta, so the more he interacts with them, the more powerful he'll get. The young man realized this was starting to feel like a real team. He could even see the angels' statuses now. The hero silently scrolled through the system messages, memorizing all the perks of his new skills. He paused at one particular line. All stats will be increased by 30% while fighting destroyers and undead. This sparked a few questions for his new partners. The next moment, Ilhan rushed forward and hugged both girls. He apologized for his terrible joke and admitted they were actually super helpful. Lita was delighted by his change of heart. A bright smile lit up the pretty girl's face. Erta, on the other hand, turned bright red. She wasn't used to this kind of affection. The guy then asked if he could train his active skill, Angel Support. The blonde angel nodded. She explained the deeper the interaction with the angels, the faster the skill develops. The young man looked a bit startled by her choice of words. His mind started racing. What? Why do I get the feeling she's about to eat me alive? Am I just misunderstanding things? Erta heard his thoughts but chose to stay quiet. The Celestial cleared her throat and announced that there were no more rewards for now. Erta seemed eager to get back to working with Ilhan, but Lita happily exclaimed that since it had been so long, they should all play a game together. The boy cheerfully agreed to her idea. He told the angels he would, right after he finished his mana crafting for the spiked spear, created a harpoon and perfected the troll blood. Lita's face fell, disappointed that he was only thinking about work. She wanted to know what was more important to him, her or his work. Erta advised her not to be so dramatic, but the celestial girl wouldn't let it go. She kept pouting at Ilhan, but he didn't even notice. The young man was so focused on perfecting his spear that the rest of the world just faded away. Now it was time to use mana craft. The hero muttered to himself, "As you command, unleash all the skills of a reaper." Lita was absolutely shocked by what she saw. The young man had grown so much stronger since they last saw him 2 months ago. "Our Ilhan can do super complex mana crafting now," the beauty exclaimed. Erta explained that because he got the quest from heaven itself, he learned incredibly fast. As the guy held the spear, a brilliant red mana enveloped him. It looked like he was performing real magic. A heavy energy filled the air around him. The system called this weapon Spiked Spear of the Extinct Dark Reaper Dragon. The refinement was complete. It was a legendary class weapon with an attack power of 4,000 and durability of 3,200. It seemed the young man himself was speechless at his own creation. It granted a 30% boost to critical hit chance damage and attack power on a surprise attack. All characteristics of his Reaper skills would be increased by 30%, and his critical strike chance and damage would increase by 150% when fighting dragons. The system's next message was poetic. The spear has been reborn in the hands of a master, filled with fierce hatred and a burning desire for revenge. The tip of this spear of vengeance will forever seek the perfect moment to pierce a dragon's throat. The young man's mind conjured an image of a giant dragon. He couldn't figure out why his weapon had such a specific option. Lita looked at the spear with fascination. She said that first option wasn't there before. After a moment of thought, she figured that the hero must have tapped deep into the weapon's records. Erta added, "It seems Lita's world was destroyed by dragons. Those options are showing up because her last wish was to kill the dragons and protect her home." The hero concluded that it was because he had truly unlocked the weapon's hidden potential. Erta agreed, saying his mana crafting was almost too successful. Lita said she wished she could be helpful, but dragons were at least third-class monsters. She had warned him to just run if he ever encountered them. But suddenly, the boy realized the Skywalkers had overlooked the most crucial detail. He looked from side to side and shouted, "The angels missed it in their predictions." That's when it finally dawned on Erta. Ilhan's future held a battle against dragons. Lita was completely lost on how they reached that conclusion. Her expression was pure confusion. The young man cried out in despair, "Do I really have to fight dragons at my level? It's a suicide mission." Haro! Erta tried to lift her student's spirits. She told him that she was certain he would find a way to pull through just like he always does. Seeing an opening, Lita decided to calm everyone down. "Why are we even worrying about this now?" she asked. "It's not like it's happening tomorrow. We've got loads of time before we see any dragons." But the hero simply replied, "Oh, I have my reasons."